this recipe, you will need 1½ cups of shredded carrots, 1 cup to 1½ cups of chopped apples, 1 can of crushed pineapple, 1/3 a cup of lemon juice, 6 cups of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, half a teaspoon of cloves, and 1 box of pectin. I just want to show you the process that I like to use to get my jars prepared for canning. As you can see here, we are going to be using the 8-ounce quilted crystal lid jars. There are different varieties of jelly jars, but I typically use an 8-ounce. And I like to place them in my oven at the lowest temperature that my oven goes to. In my oven, it only goes to 170. So I'll go ahead and preheat the oven. And then I will take the jars and I'm going to place them on a cookie sheet, which I already have laid out here. And I'll just line them up basically the same way that they come out of the box. Once they're all on that cookie sheet, I'll go ahead and I'll slide that cookie sheet right into the oven and let them heat up and stay warm while I prepare the jam or jelly that I am choosing to make. Today we're going to be making carrot cake. Now that we have our jars prepared, we can start on our jam. We'll start by getting out a large pot, and to that pot we're going to add 1½ cups of shredded carrots, which I've already peeled and shredded. Next, we will add 1 can of crushed pineapple that I just bought at the store. Preferably it should be the unsweetened variety, but if you can't find that, I think it would work just as well. Next, we will add 1 to 1½ cups of chopped apples. It doesn't matter what variety of apples you buy, but simply that you have the quantity that you need and that they are peeled and chopped. After we get our fruit added into our pan, we'll go ahead and add our seasonings, or our spices rather, which I've already measured out ahead of time. We'll add in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and a half a teaspoon of cloves. The next thing that we will be adding is lemon juice. You could use fresh squeezed lemon juice, but store-bought lemon juice works just as well. That's what I usually use. We're going to add 1/3 of a cup of lemon juice. The last thing we need to add is our pectin, and we're just going to add in 1 box of pectin. After we have all of the fruit, the pectin, and our spices added in, we will grab a spoon and mix this all together. We want to have it thoroughly mixed so that those spices will be throughout our jam, and we're going to bring this to a low boil. Once that we achieve the low boil, we want to let it boil for 20 minutes. And you can stir it occasionally to continue making sure that those flavors are mixed evenly throughout the mixture. During that 20 minutes of boiling, our fruits are going to break down and that seasoning, those spices will meld into those fruits, really giving us a nice apple, or rather carrot cake flavor. So I think I've got it thoroughly mixed now, and we will just let this come to a boil, and we'll meet back here in about 20 minutes after it has boiled. Now that we've had this boiling for 20 minutes, we're going to add our sugar. We're adding a total of 6 cups of sugar. I know that it seems like a lot, but most jams and jellies always require a lot of sugar. So after we've mixed that all in, we're going to go ahead and bring this mixture to a boil again. And if you don't want a jelly with or a jam with so much sugar in it, you can look and find low sugar or no sugar recipes. I just typically don't do a lot of those types. I'd like to. I have a lot of people asking if we have 0 sugar jams, but I haven't tackled that yet. Maybe next year. Anyways, as you can see, I've got the sugar thoroughly mixed in there, and it'll start to melt down, and you'll notice that it's going to start to get thicker. We want to go ahead and bring this whole mixture with the sugar included back up to a boil. We want it to be a rolling boil this time, which means it won't stop boiling when you mix it. Once we do that, we will boil it for 1 minute. Now that we're up to a boil, we'll go ahead and boil for 1 minute. And time to put into our jars. As you remember, I already had these jars prepared ahead of time, so they are warm, or hot rather. I just took them out of the oven. We'll grab our canning funnel, and we will use that to fill our jars so that we do not make a mess. We'll fill each jar and leave about a 1/2 inch headspace. And when I realize that I don't have enough to fill another full jar, I usually will put some in a smaller container that'll go ahead and go into the fridge for our own enjoyment. So that's what that additional jar is that looks different than the rest. That's just going to be our sample for at home for the family. And it looks like I would have had a whole nother jar, but I wasn't sure. And since it's so delicious, no one's going to be upset that we have an entire jar of our own. The next thing that we need to do is get our lids prepared for these jars. As you can see here, I have a small pot with some water, and I will count out the lids that I need for the jars. However many jars I have is the amount of lids and rings that I need for this project. We'll go ahead and put them in our pot of water, and we'll bring that to a boil. They don't need to boil long, but once that water is up to a boil, I know that it's plenty hot, and I know that I'll get a good seal. While I let those lids come to a boil, as you can see, I am wiping the rim of my jars. That way, if I did get any of the mixture on that ring or on that rim of the jar, it will not prevent the lid from sealing. If we have any residue in between the seal and the jar, it might not seal for us. So I want to make sure that they're nice and clean to provide for a good seal. And just like that, our water is boiling, so we know that our lids are ready to go. We'll go ahead and get out our lid lifter, which is a little magnet on a stick. We'll pull each of those out and put onto our jars. Be careful not to do what I just did, but set them on there nice, and then after all the lids are on your jars, we'll go ahead and we'll add our rings. So we have 8 jars, we'll need 8 rings. And we're just going to put those rings on finger tight. They do not need to be super tight. In fact, it is recommended only finger tight. You do want to be careful while you're doing this process though, because those jars are hot. So you may want to use a towel or a pot holder to hold onto the jar while you're screwing the lid on. I've been doing this long enough that I just do it and suffer the pain of my burnt fingertips. Now we have all of our lids on, we're going to go ahead and process these in the water bath canner for 10 minutes.
I hope you enjoy this carrot cake jam as much as we do.